Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And today we're going to be talking about sex and the avoidant attachment style.
Interesting.
Well, when you think about attaching and bonding, a big component to that is intimacy and sex. And so we're going to talk about that today because it's always helpful to consider things like this.
Attachment really does affect nearly every part of our relationship, and sex is a really big part of most people's relationship.
Yeah.
So, we thought we would address it today. It is also a question that we do get quite often of, how does the avoidant attachment style approach sex? So we're hoping to get into that today.
Yeah. Okay. So for some avoidants, it's easier for them to have sex than connect emotionally. Because you have to consider that a lot of this is based on how they grew up and, the way they were shut down as kids. And so a lot of times avoidants try not to think about things. And so it's hard for them to think about what's going on for them internally, their feelings, their desires, what's going on in their unconscious, and it's just easier for them to be physical with somebody where it's not so complicated or hard or difficult, right? And this is probably more true for men where they really enjoy the physical affection more so than the emotional component of it, or it's a lot easier for them to get aroused and just be intimate with somebody and connect that way than to open up in a way that basically they've been told their whole life not to do. Don't think about it. Don't think about how you feel. Don't worry about it. You're fine.
Yeah, and it's a lot more socially acceptable for men to be sexual than it is for women.
Yeah, it's almost expected of guys. Oh, he's a stud, right?
Right.
What does that say? It's all
versus when a guy is very emotional, they're seen as more wimpy.
Yeah.
Generally.
Exactly. So you'll also find that avoidance will come on very strong sexually, particularly those first 4 to 5 months. They are just kind of love bombing in a way and just very aggressive, and it can be very confusing because you're like, does this guy really like me? Does he really care about me? He's saying he does, because oftentimes the sexual stuff comes with, I've never felt this way before and things like that. And you just get swooped up right into it with them.
Exactly. And it can be easier to have that intimacy part fulfilled for an avoidant through physical sex versus that emotional part, like you're saying. Humans are still going to be humans. They're still going to need that want and need for connection. So this is a way for them to do that without getting too involved.
Yeah. 5 minutes of involvement.
They're going to do it twice? Or?
That's right. Okay. 2 times. And that's enough involvement.
So sex can also have a lot of different meanings to different people. For somebody with a more avoidant attachment style, they might see sex more transactionally as something more in the physical realm than the emotional realm. And for those who are more anxious, they can see it more as a bonding action. Something that means that person is committed to you, that means that person cares for you.
Yeah, that's a big one.
So those are 2 very big differences as to how attachment styles impact our perception of sex. And so avoidants also have a very uncanny ability to compartmentalize, meaning that sex and love can be in 2 totally different compartments versus those who are more anxiously attached, or even really those who are securely attached have more of a blend there. They're able to be emotionally vulnerable and physically vulnerable at the same time and see those things as intertwined.
Yeah. It's not easy to be intimate with other people, especially when you grow up in a home where you were essentially shut down for trying to get close to others. Avoidants were not in homes where they were given love and affection. They're avoidant for a reason, okay? And when they tried to connect to other people, they may have been shut down. They may have been told, no, don't think about it. Don't worry about it. Your feelings don't matter. I don't want to hear it. I'm tired of hearing you complaining. All of those things from infancy just leading, going on your entire life makes it difficult to get close to other people. And they may have grown up in a situation or a home where, sex wasn't talked about. Maybe there was some kind of guilt or shame. And so you'll see homes that they don't even act like sex is a part of a connection or a relationship. And it's like, you just don't talk about it. And so they don't learn about it. And it feels like almost something separate. Like, I've seen families where it wasn't talked about in any kind of healthy way. And so how do you grow up knowing or understanding it at all? And it seems like it's a bad thing. Like, connecting with somebody and being intimate is a bad thing because it's like a shameful thing.
Right.
And
I know so far we've talked about avoidance coming on strong sexually, but we also want to let you know that the opposite can be true too. Avoidance can also have a difficult time with sexual intimacy sometimes. Sometimes that's how their attachment style manifests sexually. So to your point, in households where sex is shameful or frowned upon or never talked about, sometimes that can cause intimacy issues or issues with sex.
Sure. Yeah, because they maybe feel like, oh my gosh, we shouldn't be doing this, or maybe they've thought it was so bad for so long that they try not to be intimate, or it's vulnerable to be close to somebody physically, emotionally. Maybe they grew up in a home with abuse. And so there's a lot of different aspects between a physical connection and an emotional connection. And because many of them are so emotionally disconnected, it's going to disconnect from them physically.
Right. And because avoidants generally have a harder time communicating, this translates into the sexual realm too. Avoidants can have trouble communicating what it is that they like, that they enjoy, and that can definitely impact a sexual relationship.
Yeah,
and
they might be embarrassed.
Yeah, and there's actual research that shows that an avoidant struggle with communication does negatively impact sexual satisfaction. So these are things to consider if you are dating an avoidant or if you do have more of an avoidant attachment style yourself. There could also be this underlying feeling that they're not deserving of pleasure. And this goes back to those childhood wounds that you need to be deserving of affection and of love. It doesn't come unconditionally.
Yeah.
So these are things that can show up in a sexual relationship.
Yep.
And also just discomfort with physical affection in general. If your parents weren't lovey-dovey, hugging you, kissing you, you might really miss out on that really important piece of aftercare during sex with your partner. You might be able to engage in the physical transaction part, and then afterwards, not want to touch your partner, not want to kiss them, be really uncomfortable with.
It's awkward. They feel awkward. It's like, I don't know what to do now.
And for their partner, they're just like, whoa, was I just being used for that? This feels strange. Am I your partner? Am I a doll over here? What's happening? So these are things that can happen, ways that avoidant attachment style can approach sexuality.
Yep.
Another way that sex is affected for the avoidant attachment style is also depression. So we know that those with insecure attachment styles are more likely to experience mental health issues. What this means for somebody who's avoidant is they might have more of a covert type of depression, or maybe you don't notice it right away. Maybe you just notice that they're isolating a little bit more than usual, or they're not being as talkative as usual, or they're shutting down more often, or they're not, engaging with their friends or family. We know that depression does impact sexual interest. So these are other things to be aware of that can be impacting your relationship. Another interesting thought that I had when writing out this topic was also thinking about how those with avoidant attachment styles deal with safe sex. So those with more avoidant attachment styles can be really stringent on safe sex practices, being that if they did risk either getting pregnant or getting somebody else pregnant, that could mean obviously
I'm trapped.
a bigger commitment there.
Yep.
So you can find people having particularities about certain things. And also, same goes for STIs. You know, if they were to contract an STI because of all the stigma that's around there and, you know, people trying to also be safe, it could limit their probability of finding another partner. So these are some things that somebody with a more avoidant attachment style might be a little bit more vigilant about than somebody who doesn't.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because, you know, we don't find that it's one more than the other in regards to the avoidant, like not wanting physical sex or, you know, what we were talking about at the onset of the video, because it's like, yes, they might not enjoy the sex because of all the emotional components, but maybe they do enjoy the sex and just not the emotional components of it. But, you know, it's a unique experience and it's a vulnerable thing for each particular person, and a lot of those household thoughts and beliefs about it are really going to impact that particular person. Like, is there shame about it or guilt, or, you know, depending upon how often the family talked about sex, or maybe they joked about it openly, and it wasn't a big deal, or maybe it was shamed and nobody even mentioned the word, you know. So all of those different nuances can really lead to a very unique experience about what it means to be intimate with another person. But you just want to kind of consider all of these things when you're dealing with your particular partner and their experiences and trying to understand them better, because if you can understand them better, it will not maybe be as painful for you if they don't like the intimacy, or maybe after the sex they just disappear and go in the other room and you're like, wait, I feel like I did something wrong. Where it's something that's going on within them and not something that you did, and you don't take it so personal.
We're hoping that through this video you all will have richer discussions with your partners if you are in a relationship, and be able to gain a little bit more perspective as to what happened if you are in a breakup. I think what's beautiful about this is that through sex there can be a lot of healing. We know that a lot of trauma is stored in our body, a lot of sexual shame can be stored in our body. So the more that we have these conversations openly, the more that we allow ourselves to be vulnerable about this and educate ourselves about this, the more we are healing ourselves. So just a thought.
Yeah, a lot to think about with that. And again, the other one last thing, that mental health component. With the depression, we see so much anxiety and depression that has a huge impact on somebody's willingness or ability to be intimate with another person.
And what sucks is sometimes the medications make it worse.
That's right, too. Yeah, that's something to consider as well.
And I know that throughout this video we've been exchanging the word intimacy and sex quite often. Those two can also be very different things. Intimacy having that vulnerability component, and sex being very transactional. But I want to expand your mind a little bit to say that sex and eroticism is very big. It doesn't just have to be this penetrative act. It can be a lot. And the more that you're able to really dive into, okay, how is my attachment style affecting my relationship? How is it affecting my sexuality? How is it affecting our dynamic? It can really expand how much pleasure is available to you.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's a whole world out there. Hope you all can be brave enough to to try to discover it.
All right. So hopefully this one's been helpful to you and given you something to think about. If you want to get our help personally, you can do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Skype. Coach Victoria is also available for Skype coaching.
I'm here if you'd like to chat.
Just click on her name on the top of the website to schedule with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.